Hi, Strider. I'm really excited to do this interview with you and talk more about Stone and your writing process. Before we even get to the actual questions about your book, can you tell us something a bit about you and your book?
Sure, and good morning, Zara. Thanks for having me. I'm Strider, author of Stone, book one of the Adventures of Ronan Stone series. I consider it just a fun read. I suppose theoretically it's considered a sci-fi Western, but it's not a Western, although it's set in an Old West atmosphere. And it's not typical sci-fi, although it is definitely science and fiction. It is a story of a young teen, his survival story, actually, as he finds a rock in the middle of a river, puts it in his pouch, and carries it for a couple of years. And then one day he hears a voice say, "I am here," which is the voice of the crystalline entity he's picked it up. And it's taken a couple of years for him to have his energy patterns analyzed and be able to make contact. From there on, it's just a fun story of him wandering in the Old West, dealing with issues, the local commissioner, which becomes a real problem. As a crystalline entity, Stone is able to do a lot of things, but they quickly find that knowing by thinking and knowing by doing are two very different things. And even understanding motion is very different from being able to move. So those keep bumping up in the story and make it a very interesting, fun story. When the sticky-fingered commissioner hears what's going on, he wants what he considers an ancient, powerful artifact. And so he sends his men to get it one way or another. And that leads into the story where Stone is taken and Roan is left for dead. And the situation gets worse and worse, or better and better. It's a great story right there, but we involve a different government agency, the OPR, that is come to look into the affairs of the commissioner and bump into the situation with Roan and unknowingly assists him in rescuing his friend and running back to the Badlands. But that gets into book two, Luna, which is not quite out yet. It will be very shortly, in actually a couple of weeks probably. So this is more adventures of Roan and Stone.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about Roan and Stone once I get a copy of your book. I'm already excited with all the things that you're talking about. By the way, how many books have you written and which one is your favorite?
I've written 4, actually, which Luna, book 2 in the Adventures of Roan and Stone, is in its final edits right now. 2 others, My Ransom and Within Reach, are part of a different series called Chance Encounters, and it is actively looking for agency and publication right now. Actually, Stone is an outreach of that one, in that it was going to be book 3 of that series and ended up taking off on its own storyline and changing entirely from a dystopian issue of the Puget Sound, which Chance Encounters are, into an Old West story with alien contact. So it's amazing how stories go from there. But so I've written 4, and things are right at a point where they're all breaking out at once. So that's good.
That sounds really exciting. Well, while you're getting ready to write your part 2 of Stone, then maybe we can get a copy of their other books and see and have more adventure in those books while we're waiting for part 2.
That's the hope. Thanks.
What part of the book was the most fun to write?
Oh, the entire thing. Surprisingly, I enjoy, I suppose not surprisingly, I enjoy writing. Once I get into a story, I get totally immersed, barely coming out to eat. I can spend hours at the keyboard nibbling as I eat, as I work and building a storyline.
Well, it sounds like a great experience, right? That everyone can now share with you since the book is out. So I'm really looking forward to people also learning a lot from your book and doing that for myself as well. Can you share with us what inspired the idea for your book?
As I mentioned, my other series, My Ransom was my first book, quickly followed by Within Reach, which, by the way, took a first place winning at Chanticleer International Book Awards for the Dante Rossetti Young Adult Fiction category. And as a manuscript only, it has not even been published yet, though it's now looking for publication. The next book in that series, as I said, was going to be in a different location, which turned out to be Stone. Um, and it totally was not expected when I went. It's just part of my writing style. it's it's funny, but one thing leads to another. My brain just takes off.
Well, don't we all have those moments? In the book, I know you wrote about several characters. Which one is the most similar to you or the people you know?
That's a good question. I suppose actually most of what happens is pretty close to things I've actually done or would do. That only says that I've done a lot of things, which I have. Many of the characters use my kids and grandkids as source of inspiration, even names. And by the way, if you're interested in having your name as one of the characters in my book, um, drop me a line at durmanpublishing.com. That's DURAMEN publishing.com, all one word. And I'll give that a link again later. But I would love to hear from you. And I always am looking for names and always looking for different thoughts on storylines, those kind of things. So back to the question, which is most similar to me? All my main characters are, because it's me.
Well, I like that. I also like the idea where you're inviting people to be part of your future books and as a character. Maybe I need to go to your LinkedIn or website to do the same thing so I can share, I can be part of that. So that's exciting. I've never heard of
Please
that
do.
before.
Please do. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Can you share with us how you came up with the title for this book?
Actually, that was the tough part. Stone had 3 name changes prior to publication. It only ended up as Stone during the last final cover art, and we had to have the last cover done again with a different name on it. Titles are not easy, but they're super important. Luna, Within Reach, and My Ransom all have to do with the main characters, where Luna is the Lady Luna, the name of the airship. The Ransom, or My Ransom, is the name of the boat, the Ransom. And Reacher, Within Reach, Reacher happens to be the name of the character, the main character in the book, the protagonist of Within Reach story. Then, of course, Stone is Stone, which is one of the main 2 characters in the book with Roan and Stone. So I always try to put some play on one of the characters in my book, and I think that's cool. I like that particular method, but that's just mine.
Okay. And I know you mentioned earlier that a lot of the book is what you've been through, and it's inspired about a lot of the people you know are the characters. But in now that you've published the book, would you and your main character get along?
Absolutely. We tend to think alike, which of course makes sense, but it's not truly just a fake character. But it's why they are who they are. And that is how I think. In fact, in editing, sometimes it's very difficult to bring things to a right focus when I wrote it the way I wanted to write, but that's not necessarily the way it needs to come out. So we kind of sometimes fight myself or editors when they're going back through saying, you need to do this and this. I said, but that's the way I wrote it. That's the way I think, which probably says a little bit of how I think.
And then it tends to confuse you, right? So
Yes.
let's talk about what your writing process is like. What is your writing process like? And are you more of a plotter or a pantser?
Definitely a pantser. And for those that don't know the terms, plotters plot out their storyline before writing. They set up their characters, their scenes, the twists, plot runs at them before they write it. To me, that means plodding, not plotting, but anyway, I'm a pantser, which is seat of the pants writing. When I sit down to write, the words simply flow out to the screen. It's just as they come to mind, which is really exciting because when I'm done with writing it, I can't believe I actually wrote that. That is so cool. But that is how I do it. I'm definitely a pantser. It makes it very difficult, however, in editing. I don't know that I would recommend it to anyone. Plotting is probably a much more productive method. But I don't start out with much storyline. General concept, yes. Nothing bulleted outline. Like I said, it takes much, much more editing. In fact, I'll take entire chapters later when I do a review of it and dump them. Good chapters, excellent chapters, but they no longer fit or add to the story where it's going. It's kind of like, that's something different. That'll be fine. I'll put it away. Maybe I'll use it somewhere else or some different story. But it definitely takes painstaking editing to correct after this kind of writing or change or smooth or better. But definitely a pantser.
Well, I like that you shared the differences between a plotter and a pantser, and your experience of the cons of being a pantser, but you definitely made it exciting to be one. Like, if I were to write a book, I don't know if I really want to be a plotter because it sounds so exciting to be a pantser.
Well, it is. And like I said, I do not really know where the book's going, the story, when I write it. It can go anywhere, honestly. And but it's fun. It is so much fun. It's so exciting when you get done, like saying, man, I really cannot believe I wrote that.
And that's why it makes it more exciting to read your book, because there's a ton of adventure and you don't know where it's going to go
And
leading
that
into
is
the
what I
event.
get back on my reviews. We've got like 80% 5-star reviews throughout, which is amazing, just totally amazing. But they say it's so much fun, or I can't wait for the next book. I couldn't put it down. It's fun. It's a fun read. That's the best way to say it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I nibble, which is terrible, but I do crackers, nuts, something, a cup of coffee, a mocha sitting here beside me. But when I sit and write, I sit for so long. I have changed locations all day. I'll go from my desk here in the office to the kitchen table for a while, the couch. Even we live in the Puget Sound region, so there's ferry rides often. So I'll just pull out the computer if I'm by myself and write while I'm on the ferry, if there's no distractions. It just takes zillions of hours, zillions. You would never do this by the hour. It just can't. It's you have no idea how many hours it takes, but it's still fun.
I like that. It reminds me of my favorite TV show, which is Grey's Anatomy, talking about ferry rides. Um, if you were to write a spin-off about a side character, which would you pick?
Oh, finally, easy question. I already have one planned. In the Adventures of Ronan Stone, it's already in his third book. I'm about halfway through that one. But I had to leave Bella, our erstwhile heroine, as captain of the Lady Luna, the airship created by Roan to deal with the pirate issues in Corgi, which of course you know nothing about because it's not out there yet in publication, which should be in a couple of weeks, hopefully, for book 2, Luna. So stay tuned. Anyway, Roan was recalled in book 3 to the OPR, which is also the title of book 3, Recalled. And he bequeaths Luna to Bella as she becomes Captain Bell, because it has far bigger punch than Bella, face it. And she becomes captain of this airship that he builds, which practically screams for a new series with her as captain of the airship she helped build. And from there on, I actually have a third series from this same storyline, which would be the future. We started out in the Old West. It goes kind of into Gaslight era. And then book 2 bridges into a light steampunk arrangement as they pick up more science and things. And eventually, unfortunately, Stone is basically immortal. He's a crystalline entity. He's already lived eons. And of course, the story explains some of this. But Roan isn't. And even if I give them longer life, which, by the way, is in the storyline, and you don't know that yet, but it is there, eventually it's got to end. So what I've done from there is I have a plan on taking Stone to the future where he connects up with some late relative, great-great-grandson or whatever of Roan, and they go into space in a spaceship they create, just like they created the Lady Luna. So I've got this huge storyline, books long, but in 3 separate series of 3 different time frames and issues. It's just amazing. As I said, in the original book, Roan and Stone, Stone came out of a previous series, which is a whole different thing, a dystopian of the Puget Sound. So there is just too much to write. It's just huge. I love it.
Well, you seem very busy, but I'll look out for Captain Bell to see how that character came out in your book.
She's good. You'll like her. She's fun.
She sounds fun. So now that you've written several books and you've finished a lot of them, how do you celebrate when you're done?
Celebrate?
Yeah.
I don't even know the word. Just getting published is a massive celebration because it takes incredible amounts of time and effort. But I don't know.
You probably celebrate by writing another book, right?
There you go. Yep. I get so excited. I got to write some more.
There you go. Do you have a kryptonite as a writer?
This is an answer you won't like. It's the writing industry. I've owned several businesses in my life, and I've never known anything like the time it takes to get something done in writing. It can literally take years to write the story in the first place, then to edit it, and manuscript overviews, re-editing, polishing, rewrite that, line edits, re-edit your line edits, proofread it, proof production, pre-production reviews, queries, replies, second queries, third queries, 15th queries, and potentially never even find an agent or a publisher. It's a horrendous process, but it is what it is. And I honestly tip my hat to any published author because it's truly a process.
Well, congratulations to you then. I agree. I've heard it before. And if you just keep on going, right, you're finally going to find that sweet spot and you're going to get the ball rolling. So thank
And
you.
if not, enjoy what you're doing because you're doing it for fun. I hope, because you're not doing it for money.
Exactly. And has writing and publishing a book changed how you see yourself?
Probably not much. Dogged, determined, stubborn, do it my own way, persistent, which is one of my other names is Strider Persistent. So no, older and slower, sure, but it's still me.
Do you see writing as spiritual or therapeutic practice?
Both. Very therapeutic, although spiritual too. Figure it's my life, my experiences through a different set of eyes. I actually kind of relive things that when I'm writing them. And part of probably why they're so honest. I've been there. I've done that. I was a big game guide. I was a firefighter EMT for 25 years career. I've owned businesses. I've had employees. I've climbed mountains. Ski instructor. If I wanted to do it, I found a way to go do it. And I went and did it. So I have done all the things. Okay, I haven't built an airship. Maybe I will. But you know what? I put together a process that really would work. And because of that, because of the science, because of the physics involved that's in the storylines, it's just part of the story. These things you say, you know what? Shoot, that sounds fun.
Well, your life alone sounds very adventurous. You should probably write a book about you.
I am, I guess, with other
Um,
names.
would anyone in your family disapprove of anything you've written?
I don't think so. I think they're proud of my being an author. And it's also one of the reasons I write YA, which is young adult. It tends to be less detailed. I've been there. I know what it looks like and feels like. And YA requires slightly less contact with, say, gore and explicit sex, that sort of things. It doesn't take that to make a good story. You just have to write it right.
Thank you. And Strider, if you had to describe yourself in just 3 words, what would those be?
3 words. Well, there goes 2 of them. How about honorable, wise listener? Honorable with knightly virtues of a gentleman and wise enough to listen.
Well, thank you. Those are pretty good words. So already says a lot about who you are. What is the most valuable advice you've been given about writing?
That I've been given. Again, as I warn people, I warn others. Gosh, why would you want to do that? But if you're going to, just do it. Don't wait. I waited until I retired, and now I have less years to produce more and less years to see them enjoyed. And that's a big thing. To hear somebody say, send something to me and say, gosh, that was just a great story. Those kind of things. I love the fact that somebody's reading my work. It's fun to produce it, but it's fun to share it.
And for those that are just starting out or get inspired by this interview, what do you think is the best way to improve writing skills?
You've got to read. And then not just read for entertainment, but then pay attention and read on how they articulate, where they make breaks, descriptive sentences, sentence structure itself. You need to know it all. And you'll either learn it through error or learn it because it feels right to do it that way. So you just have to know it. You have to read.
Thank you. And I know you're a pantser, but what advice would you give to help others create plot lines?
The biggest one is you have to know your story. Like any good writing, whether it's in classroom, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to feel the story before you can write it. You need to know where it is, so world building, when it is, who they are, what they look like, sound like, what they do. Every element that you don't know is something the readers won't know. And even then, just because you know it and feel it doesn't mean that you've told your readers those issues so they know it. So that's a big thing. You have to feel the story before you can put it out there, in other words.
I think that's great advice. Now, can you tell us where we can purchase your book? And if you have a website, please mention your website.
Sure. Stone, The Adventures of Ronan Stone is available in most online sources, practically everywhere. It's in ebook and paperback, even an audiobook. It's also in local bookstores around the Puget Sound in particular, since that's where I am. But if your store doesn't have it on the shelf, just ask for it. They'll get it. They know how to do that. You can also find it online at durhamandpublishing.com, as I said. And don't forget to link in there and write to me. Leave your names and how I can get a hold of you. I can let you know when next book comes up because there's a bunch of them. Those kind of things. It's fun. That was Durham Publishing, Duramen, publishing.com. And there's other books there, not just mine. And have fun. Read, enjoy. It's the greatest thing in life.
Thank you, Strider. Now, lastly, how's your experience with Bookmark Alliance?
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of publicity. Been to Taken Stone. Bookmark Alliance has taken Stone to Texas, Florida, Germany at the world's largest book show at the Frankfurt Book Messe. And now we're in Southern California at the LA Times Book Festival. That's a lot.
Thank you, Strider. Now, this interview has been a lot of fun adventure. I'm really looking forward to reading your book. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you again, Zara. And I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. It's Stone. Easiest way to find it online, by the way, because there are so many books called Stone, which I didn't realize when I named it, but is through Roan and Stone, Rhone and Stone. The Adventures of Roan and Stone. Thank you.